Today we're assembling the Forest King Pro 30-ton log splitter. Lots of fun for your day after Thanksgiving.
Papa Booey.
And it comes in a crate like this.
Simply open the crate.
Simply open the crate. Step 1, install tires.
So what we did is we pulled this cotter pin out of this slotted nut. We're going to take it off and put the two tires on. These already came assembled on, and they're wrapped in this wax with a little rubber band around it. Also got this other kit to assemble everything else. We'll get back to you once we get the tires on.
Tire assembly on one side. Pull the cotter pin, nut and washer come off, tire goes on, washer, nut go back on, cotter pin.
We're going to get this all the way tight, then we're going to back it off a quarter turn. Okay, so we've had a couple tries at putting this guy on because the cotter pin seems to get in the way and doesn't let us come all the way down. If we turn the cotter pin the other direction, it comes out too far. So what we're going to do is we're going to hammer this thing all the way around, flatten it down to get it out of the way, and we're going to try to put it on. Now, we don't have a rubber mallet, so we could go with this, or we could take this guy and hit it on, or you could kind of cover it with a rag and tap it with another hammer of some sort. Still looks like it's not going on, but we'll keep working on it and let you know what we figure out. Okay, so what we figured out, we just gave it a few more blasts with the hammer and this piece of wood, and it seemed to do the trick. If you have a rubber mallet, it's going to work a lot better, but just know that as long as the cotter pin's out of the way, just beat it on.
We preferred to work on it end on end. So what we did, so we didn't smash the center cap, is we just stuck a couple boards underneath.
Okay guys, we're taking the tow bar, attaching it to the hydraulic tank, which has the wheel assembly on it already. We're going to take the M12 bolts, put an M12 washer on both sides, and then they've got the M12 nylon locking washer. And we're using a 19mm socket, and I'm just backing it up with a crescent wrench.
We're repositioning the beam assembly right now. It's helpful to have a dolly of some kind underneath your crate because that is heavy. Took two guys, we stood it upright, and we're getting ready to put the hitch pin in per the instructions. Just like so. The hinge pin will go in easily if the hole is in the right position. So if you're having trouble getting it through, you don't need a bigger sledgehammer. You just need to move the beam around a little bit. Okay, the next step is twofold. We're attaching an engine and a battery. In order to attach the engine, you're going to have these 4 polyurethane blocks and flat washers on top, and you're going to insert the bolts through the bottom of the engine plate and fasten them down with these washers and lock nuts and regular washers. We are using a
13mm ratchet.
13mm ratchet.
Come on, boy.
Position the engine over the blocks. Helps having 2 people for this, unless you're recording it. 3's nice. And it can't hurt to have your dad in the background cleaning the fish. That's quite a cooler full. Big crappie and bluegill, which is a requirement in our household. Right, Dad? That's a yeah. That's okay. You can still fish at that age. It doesn't matter if you have your hearing or not. We'll be back with you in just a second to update you with any troubles that we have getting these bolts to go up through the mountain plate. Here's what you got going on as far as where your nuts and washers go. On the bottom you have a bolt that goes up through the mounting plate for the engine. And then you've got your polyurethane block with a flat washer sitting on top of it, and then the engine, followed by a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nylon nut. Just a side note about tightening these bolts down. The polyurethane blocks, they will squish. You don't need to tighten them, they'll keep going forever. I think a good way just to be able to see how much you've tightened it down is to look at the number of threads that are on the top side. And you can get a really good gauge at if they're equivalent. I also want to point out something to you on the back side of the motor. It's really easy to use your ratchet on this side. On the back side, I'll show it to you. It's just a little more tight and cramped back there, but you'll be able to do it. Now, to adjust the two on the back, notice how it's just a little bit tighter. The thinking's the same. Put your adjustable wrench on the top and ratchet it down from below. Go ahead. Now that we have the engine mounted, we've moved on to the battery.
We've taken the little plate off that holds it down, and we found that inside on the wires there's a small fastener that requires a 6mm socket, and to put this back on we're going to use a 13mm again. I'll go ahead and show you how we're going to hook this up. We've got the leads out on the far side, and I'm going to put on by hand this nut, get it going, and then I'll just finish that off with a wrench. Once you have this fastened, when you slide this down, you'll notice it doesn't fit, so you're going to want to bend this over so you can slide it down, and it fits nicely over top. So I'm taking the bar back off. I put it on, and I realized with the tools I have that I'm going to arc this out as I'm putting this together. So I'm going to go ahead and take this back off and put this on. So you may want to put your leads on first and then put the bar on. I tried to put the ground on, then the bar, then this. So I'm taking this back off. Maybe I'll save you a little bit of time.
What do you mean by arc this out?
Oh, I just touched this guy to the lead and it sparked.
Next is step 5, attach hydraulic hoses, storage tube, and log cradle. We are starting with a storage tube, and this is what we see.
We're going to start out by we're going to put a flat washer on one side, and then we're going to put the nut. I'll pull this in place and do that on both sides. I'm going to use a 10mm ratchet. I'm going to use a crescent wrench, and it's important to have a beverage. Had to take this guy off to get in there. Again, I'm going to drop a flat washer in there and screw this guy on. Back it up.
Tighten it down.
Okay, we're going to hook up the hydraulic hose. I'm going to hook up the tank hose. Pull the cap off. This is an O-ring face seal, so you got to place the O-ring in there. On this style of fitting, you do not need any type of tape. Inside of here, they've got a nice plug so they don't get contamination in the hose during shipping from China. God knows what comes in there. So a little bit of oil in there already. Putting a little bit of oil on the seal is never a bad idea, and we're going to get that started. Okay, so our adjustable wrench wasn't the right size. Went over to the toolbox, grabbed an 1.25 inch open, and that fits it perfect. Probably metric, but hey, we'll take it. All right, now we're going to do the pressure outlet of the pump. Stick that seal on. We're going to put a little bit of stuff on there. Again, we have to take the protective dust cap out of here. We can probably expect a little bit of oil coming back from the valve. And stick this guy on. One thing I'm going to note also is you're going to want to keep some pressure on that so the O-ring doesn't slip off. And in this case, our adjustable wrench is going to fit, and we're putting this just snug. Face seal tightens up really easily.
To backtrack one step for the attaching the engine and battery, we neglected to attach the clear oil pipe to the bottom.
Yep, and we're gonna want to make sure we yank this out before we put it on. And we're using a 7mm wrench to loosen up this worm gear. And put it right on there.
And tighten it up. Now we're on to installing the log cradle, which is installed on the opposite side of the storage tube, which is over here. We also decided to go ahead and drop the beam down. It'd be a little bit easier to install it this way.
Yep, and we're going to use a 19mm socket and an adjustable wrench again. This guy just goes right up in here. I'm putting a flat washer in on the other side, and we've got another nylon locking nut.
We noticed in the instructions that there wasn't anything said about the control lever. So Seth is going to just show us that this item right here has a pin.
These two, the hitch pin and the pin come out, and you put the lever in, bang that on, and put the hitch pin right back on.
Okay guys, we're down to fluids, which would be oil, hydraulic oil, and gasoline. Locations are?
We got the gasoline right here, oil fill here, hydraulic oil fill right here. These are the products we used.
1 quart, 10W30, and here's your hydraulic oil.
We couldn't find the key, and then we found out it was locked down here. Another quick thing we came up with is we're going to take this little wall mount. You can buy at any hardware store, key lockbox, and we're going to mount it over by the accessory holder. Just because we're sharing this as brothers, and we can go ahead and pick it up and have the key for it.
This unit calls for 3.17 gallons of hydraulic oil. We're going to measure that by just pouring what we think is 3.17 gallons out of a 5-gallon drum and measuring as we go.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start it up. We've got it in the choke position. The idle is pushed all the way back. Now I've got the key in. I'm going to turn the key right now.